From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on Ag Day, would you try this? A new kind of chicken nuggets that are more plant than poultry.
So the premise of the company is to screen through the world's plants to discover functional applications in the food system.
We've heard about the soybean damage in eastern Iowa, but how extensive is it? We travel to Washington, Iowa ahead in the show.
What many might see as welcome changes in a new ag barometer.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. A new ag economy barometer shows things may be looking up for America's producers, or at least they think so. Looking at the numbers, the Purdue University October barometer has a reading of 136. That's 22 points higher than it was in September. Now, September holds the lowest reading for the survey since 2016. The sentiment improved thanks to farmers being more optimistic about current and future conditions. The index of current conditions rose 19 points and expectations rose 24 points.
But the bigger story there is the fact that although the index of current conditions rebounded, it still remains well below where it was last spring before the trade wars erupted. The index of future expectations has increased to the point where it's now pretty comparable to where it was late winter and early spring. So producers are much more optimistic about the future than they are about current conditions.
Producers were asked about the new NAFTA agreement. Just over 60% said the agreement would relieve some of their income concerns. 25% said it would not. They were also asked about crop prices for next year. In each case, they said they expect to see higher prices. And when asked about soybeans for next year, 77% said their acreage would remain the same. However, 1 in 5 soybean growers say they plan to reduce it. Trade still impacting farmer sentiments, but China's vice president saying his country is ready to have talks with the U.S. to resolve the trade issues. The vice president telling Bloomberg, quote, both China and the U.S. would love to see greater trade and economic cooperation. He went on to say they are prepared to work for a solution on a trade acceptable to both sides, and he echoed comments made by China's president at a major trade expo that the country is hosting right now. We've been telling you President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping have agreed to meet during the G20 summit later this month in Buenos Aires. Speaking of trade, the U.S. Meat Export Federation releasing its latest shipment numbers for September. Beef exports cooled from those August records, but they're still higher year over year at 110,000 metric tons. That's up 6%. Now, pork muscle cuts were up over a year ago, but variety meats sharply lower. Overall, pork exports fell 2% to 179,000 metric tons. Values fell 7%. The USMEF says trade obstacles U.S. pork faces in China and Mexico continues to put pressure on export values. Now, if you're talking about the year-to-date beef shipments topping $6 billion, that's up 18%. South Korea now the #1 destination and on record pace. Year-to-date pork shipments feeling more pressure from trade tensions, but still above last year. Farm Journal policy analyst Jim Wiesmeyer gives an 80% chance the Farm Bill will be passed before the new Congress is installed in 2019. But that's not the only thing at stake this election cycle. Tyne Morgan joins us from the Milk Conference in Las Vegas with more on the tax implications of this vote.
Doug, you know, there was a lot of hype before the election, Farm Bill, tax reform, certain bills that, depending on who took over as majority or, stayed as majority of the House and the Senate, would be passed or would not be passed. With tax reform specifically, is there anything that's kind of in limbo right now as we were waiting for these election results?
It's a good question, Tyne. There were actually a couple of provisions that were Chairman Brady, who is the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, there are provisions in the tax code, in the tax reform, that were considered temporary, meaning they were going to expire in 2025. In late 2018, there's been a bill that would make many of those provisions permanent. Now, they call it Tax Reform 2.0. Chairman Brady has indicated that that bill is actually stalled out until after the election.
Would you say it's been beneficial to farmers and ranchers and agriculture in general, or is this tax reform a good thing?
Absolutely. There are some key provisions that farmers and ranchers and dairymen were carved out specifically for some advantages and some benefits. We want these provisions to be permanent. Any tax provision that expires in 2025, that's not that many years into the future. So if dairymen and farmers do any type of restructuring or succession planning or strategy planning, by the time they get that in place, it may be 2025 and these provisions have expired.
All right, Doug, thank you for trying to provide some clarity around what can be a very confusing topic. We appreciate it. Doug Clausen here. Reporting from the Milk Business Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada, I'm Tyne Morgan for AgDay.
The I-80 Harvest Tour is brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
USDA says 88% of soybean acres have been harvested in Iowa. That's 6 ticks behind the 5-year average. And some farmers in eastern Iowa have concerns about damage after a deluge of rain pelted the crop during October harvest. Betsy Jiven travels to Washington, Iowa to scope things out. It's this week's I-80 Harvest Tour.
Fall work is constant for Washington, Iowa farmer Mike Berto. Now on his list, weaning calves since harvest is complete.
24 hours from now, it'll be a ball and mess.
It took a lot of work to get to this point.
We didn't combine for 12 days in October. We just sat and took care of livestock.
The overwhelming amount of rain and even snow created soybean damage, cracked and sprouted pods.
I didn't notice it personally as much, but I think it did hurt the yield. I think most of our soybeans were in the mid-50s, maybe some 60 bushel beans.
How extensive is the damage?
Honestly, it's hit and miss on each field.
Nolman is a grain merchandising manager for AgRoway Partners with territory throughout eastern Iowa.
Normally they should be all the way around, all the way through, no markings on them. Unlike here, you have your beans split in half, you've got beans that are shriveled up here.
She's seeing soybean damage ranging from 5 to 25%.
You know, and I'll admit we've taken in some bad beans, but I think we'll be fine with being able as many good beans that we've been able to take in.
There are beans yielding in the 50 bushel per acre range. She says some damaged beans are still producing 60 plus bushels per acre. That number is still higher than the national average.
Compared to other years, it's probably worse than what we've seen. I mean, we've been spoiled around here that we've had the great weather. We haven't had the late season problems.
However, she says it's even harder for bruised beans to be exported because of damage in the south.
So I will say the terminal schedules have been harder this year on discounts towards damaged beans specifically, and they're only letting in so many of a percentage too.
As Berto endures another chore on the farm.
These bunks came over on one of Columbus's ships, I think.
He's glad to finally be done with harvest and hopes winter weather will cooperate. Reporting in Washington, Iowa, I'm Betsy Jiven.
Once a farmer, always a farmer, as meteorologist David Harker tells us in today's Crop Comments. Good morning, David.
We have something to show you today that proves the farming spirit in it, the fact that it never leaves you. This photo sent in to us by Kel Coppin there of northern Iowa, and this is Kel's dad, Paul. He's 91 years young. Kel says his dad is retired, but still runs the combine for him when it comes to corn. Do you have photos of mom or dad or grandma or grandpa helping out during the harvest? Well, make sure to share them with us on AgDay's Twitter and Facebook pages. Take a look at the wind speed map and you notice the Great Lakes and the northern portions of the United States really dealing with that wind, strong low pressure system making its way out of the United States. That's why the wind gusts could be in excess of 40 miles per hour through the eastern Great Lakes and up into New England. Be sure to stick around. We'll have a look at the national forecast coming up. But first, here are some hometown temps.
Keeping track of the shifting market prices has never been so easy. Get the latest commodity prices sent directly to your cell phone with market updates. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Still ahead, there are some positives to talk about when it comes to soybeans in trade, but what if that doesn't materialize? We'll have analysis coming up next, and later, a new take on chicken nuggets that leaves out much of the chicken. We'll explain coming up in the country. Corn futures continuing to face some pressure, and soybeans still seeing some losses. But wheat, they saw gains. We have more now from the floor of the CME.
For the most part, we've had mixed markets in the grains. We started off lower in the row crops for corn and soybeans, but wheat has been holding a higher tone really all day. The wheat is stronger on the idea that crop conditions came out yesterday and the winter wheat conditions were a little bit less good than what the trade was expecting. Now, as far as the row crops are concerned, a fairly quiet day. We've got election day going on here, obviously, today, and then we have a big USDA report coming out on Thursday. So kind of some pre-report and election day trade going on right now. Could be very choppy between now and Thursday, but for the most part, the price action seems really rather positive. It's been a fairly active day for the livestock contracts, specifically for the hogs, locking limit down in the December hogs here under a significant amount of pressure. Now, news-wise, I think it's more a lack of news than anything else. Longer term, domestic demand's good, export demand is solid. The higher dollar is not necessarily helping things. That is causing concern. But I do think the demand is going to stay good, and I would like to see, I expect to see hogs to find some footing over the course of the next few days and then start to see a bit of a bounce. This is Ted Seifert from Zaner Ag Hedge coming to you from the CME floor.
Bill Biederman, our guest here at the Agribusiness Test today. Bill, all right, let's take soybeans from the perspective of, hey, we've got positive news happening. Talks are continuing. Maybe there's a deal getting worked out somewhere in the trade world. Where does that take soybeans?
Well, we definitely move higher quickly from the start as the world buyers jump in to try and buy that big discount in the United States.
Sure.
And, you know, they could make $1 over their freight to get it in. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So that would happen right away, and that would drive our prices higher. And our farmers aren't going to be in any hurry to sell, other than the fact that they're going to go, thank you. You know,
right.
So they'll be able to get some of that stress off. And so that would be the good thing. You know, if you're selling now, it would probably be a good idea to try to find a cheap option to buy, you know, long term. You can buy like some option spreads for like 10 to 15 cents.
Okay.
Don't spend a lot.
Okay.
Just, that way, if things go positive, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just kind of set yourself up for, hey, if this actually does work out, you're ready.
Right. Right.
Okay. If we flip that around and say, okay, trade news is not good and things get a little bit worse, or these negotiations falter, where does that take us?
Okay, so now that's a really long-term implication on the negative side. So the first thing that happens is your carryover is realistically going to get revised to about 1.2 billion bushel.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe even 1.3. It is staggering. It's like, one guy said, well, 1.3, that's like corn. Does that mean we go to $3 beans? You know, I mean, that's a very legitimate question when you're looking at bushels. The other thing that it does is that it sets you up for the years to come, because China won't come back. You know,
so it's a longer-term problem.
A very long-term problem. So in this situation, I've already put together some three-way option things. It eliminates, but like, this is just one thing you could do. There's a million things, but this eliminates $1 of downside exposure and keeps $1 upside in case we rally.
Right.
And it's only costs, I think I did one Friday for like 4 or 5 cents.
Oh, well,
yeah. It's really not that much. So I think you got to talk to your brokers. I don't think you can do this in the cash market. I think you have to do it using options. Call your brokers and figure this out. There's got to be something you should do, because the long-term implications of this, if I could give myself $1 a leeway, at least I have time to make a decision on what to do next.
Right, right. You've got some cushion there.
Exactly.
All right, appreciate it, Bill. Thank you so much. Good insight. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
To talk with Bill Biederman one-on-one, call Allendale Incorporated at 815-404-1917 or head online to allendale-inc.com. Ag Day, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist David Harker joining us here at the Ag Day Weather Center. And if we look at the root zone moisture map, David, we could see, boy, there are places where harvest is still going on, still super wet.
Oh, it sure is, whether it be in the northern plain states or, my goodness, in Ohio. I know a lot of folks out there, unfortunately, dealing with a lot of moisture, and that's making it tough to get the crops out of the fields. You'll also notice that the fact that it's so much drier out west means that drought, well, maybe picking back up. That seems to be the case right there along the western portion of the United States. Now, as we take a look at more or less the future track-like model, you'll notice that this large low pressure system that provided rain showers and even snow showers to the upper plain states and Great Lakes, well, that's making its way out. We need to dry out, as we know, in portions of the Great Lakes and even the central plains where the harvest is still continuing. We need to get the crops out, and more rain is not a good thing. We're also watching the next system tracking out of the Rocky Mountains, providing snow showers to South Dakota as well as Colorado, even into Nebraska and Kansas. Notice that continues to be the case, and it continues to track off to the Ohio River Valley, where snow showers prevalent as we look to the evening hours going into Thursday for Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky and the Hoosier state of Indiana. A look at precipitation estimates that we'll likely see over the course of today going into Thursday. A lot of moisture sitting on the Gulf Coast there. Otherwise, you notice the light rain showers in the Carolinas stretching up to the northeast. When we start talking snow estimates, we've still got feet upon feet there in the upper Rocky Mountains. Notice as we transition over the course of Thursday, that system giving us a good 6 to 8, even upwards of a foot when we talk about snowfall amounts there in Nebraska and Kansas. Snow showers, yeah, makes you think, oh boy, winter is just about upon us. Notice the temperatures later this afternoon. We've got the colder air sitting in the northern plains states, 26 in Bismarck, 34 degrees in Minneapolis, and 41 degrees in Omaha. You make your way down to South Texas, where we find the temperatures still sticking out close to 80 degrees in San Antonio and Austin, as well as Houston, 86 degrees down in Brownsville. We find temperatures near 80 in New Orleans, stretching out through Jacksonville, 83 degrees in Miami. Let's take a look at what we've got into the overnight hours, and you'll find that all that colder air stretching back down from Canada. That means lows are back down into the teens to the north, and we've got 60s down south. As we look at the jet stream map, what you'll find is this big lobes and lobes of colder air rolling back into the Great Lakes, providing snow showers. And that'll be the case going into the weekend and certainly into next week. You'll find that that cutoff low pressure system makes its way into New England, producing snow showers as well, something that we'll continue to watch while it remains dry out west. Let's take a look at some forecasted temperatures near you. Oakdale, California, 75 degrees with sunshine and a light variable wind. As we make our way out to Mandan, North Dakota, after the snow, it's partly sunny and cold with a high of 24. Albertville, Alabama, with rain showers and 64 is a high.
Those fall colors really looking spectacular in parts of the country right now. This video, taken by John Kutchko, shows you're looking at what's sometimes called the Grand Canyon of the East from above. This is Letchworth State Park in western New York, and you can see sun-splashed fall color along the Genesee River. Just amazing. Make sure to check out John's full video on AgDay's Facebook and Twitter pages. Beautiful. A protest in Mexico affecting avocados right now. Plus, the FDA has an update on an E. coli outbreak involving romaine lettuce. That's next. The Packer reports a group of dissident growers of avocados in Mexico are stopping harvest crews from entering orchards, and that means inventories are dropping. The Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Calavo growers in Santa Paula, California, calling it an extreme situation, saying prices were going up because of the perception that availability is running out. He says while avocados can stay on trees longer than other types of fruit, a delay can affect the next season's harvest. Several Mexican media outlets say the growers are protesting the illegal exports of avocados. The Association of Producers and Exports of Avocados from Mexico say it's trying to get a reasonable dialogue going, but says so far those efforts have been unsuccessful. The Food and Drug Administration's investigation into a deadly E. coli outbreak has turned up no specific sources for the illness. The outbreak was traced to romaine lettuce in Yuma, Arizona. Now, the FDA did conclude the pathogen likely came from contaminated irrigation water in a canal that passes near a cattle operation. The FDA has notified the leafy greens industry it will soon start a romaine lettuce surveillance program. That program will analyze samples from all growing areas. In total, 210 people were sickened, 5 people died. The last reported illness happened in August. How do chicken nuggets without the chicken part sound? We'll see why it's closer to becoming a reality next in the country.
In the country, brought to you by Kubota. See the all-new Commander Pro zero-turn mower at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
Do you think your kids would eat chicken nuggets that aren't made with real chicken? Is that even a thing? Well, leave it to science to find a way. A food tech lab in California called Just Food is developing lab-grown chicken nuggets. They use stem cells from a chicken wing, but leave the bird intact. That means the animal's never slaughtered. Those stem cells are then combined with plant-based proteins. Those proteins come from sources like mung beans, and that helps create a taste and texture similar to chicken. A chef sampled the nuggets, and he claims they taste just like chicken.
The flavor's delicious. The texture is spot on. And that's not easy to do, right?
So the premise of the company is to screen through the world's plants to discover functional applications in the food system. So by functional, we mean, can it emulsify oils? Can it do things in food that we know and are familiar with? You know, things like eggs and dairy doing, like making dressings and condiments and all sorts of different things.
Now, one of the biggest challenges the company faces right now is making lab-grown chicken affordable. It currently costs about $100 to create just 1 pound of meat. But the company's CEO claims when they ramp up production, the nuggets will eventually be just as affordable as regular chicken. If all goes as planned, Just Food hopes to release its chicken products to stores next year. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.